Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery I've never tried anything from before. So as I've told you in previous reviews, there are somewhere in the region of 800 little microbreweries around Sweden these days. The reason that there are so many for a country of only 10 million people is that the alcohol laws historically have been very strict here. So there's been a lot of home brewers who have kind of come out of that, and many of them are now starting to turn professional, which is great. So you can find some real gems amongst these very small and relatively unknown Swedish breweries. So if you get the chance to try some of these beers, I highly recommend that you do. I've tried some great things on the channel here over the years, and I always try to introduce at least 2 or 3 new and small Swedish breweries on the channel every month, and it's one of those reviews that we're going to do today. So looking forward to this one. Fingers crossed this is another good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to Nörrköpping, which is a little bit to the south of Stockholm, and we're going to have a look at my first beer from Potum Brewery. So this particular beer is called the California Love. It comes in at 6.5% ABV, and this one is a West Coast IPA. So this beer was first released as part of the Lokal och Småskalig assortment through Systembolaget here in Sweden for, I think it was March of 2021, but I got this can a little bit later than that. Someone recommended this brewery to me, but I cannot remember for the life of me who that was now. But yeah, there was a choice of a New England IPA or a West Coast IPA, so I wanted to do something a little bit different and go for the West Coast IPA. And as you know, if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I am a big fan of the classic West Coasters. So yeah, 6.5% West Coaster, this one from Potum Brewery in Nörrköpping. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Potum Brewery. This is the very first time I'm trying one of their beers, as I mentioned, but there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Potum Brewery then. So Potum Brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Nörrköpping, and the company was founded in 2020 by Johan Axelsson, so a very new brewery on the market. So Johan trained as a brewer with now his own brewery from what I understand, and he's also an owner of another company called Reltech, which specialises in radio controls for lifting and industrial equipment. But he invested heavily in the brewery from early on, and he built up the facility himself. It's equipped with a 1,000 litre brew kit and then 8 1,000 litre fermentation tanks, so some serious kit in there. And Johan had actually planned initially to sell his beers to restaurants, but then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, so he brought forward his Systembolaget releases to March of 2021. But Johan hopes that at some stage he can make his living from the brewery, but he's been using his other company to finance this one essentially, and he hopes that at some stage they can have a tap room, and he's hoping that he can scale up the capacity to somewhere between 50 and 100,000 litres. In the next couple of years. But they are, as I say, a very new brewery on the market, and as of July 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 15 different kinds of beer thus far. I think it is still only 2 that are available through Systembolaget though. There's this one and there's a New England IPA, but those were the very first 2 that they released through Systembolaget, of course. But yeah, that is all the information I could really find on Potum Brewery. They are very new, so that's why you get a shorter history section with this one. But yeah, I think that is adequate information about these guys for the moment. So if you want to learn a little bit more about them, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on then and have a little taste of the beer then. So just to let you have a little look at the can before we open it up, I do quite like the the can artwork on this one. It is pretty nice. You can see it's got a kind of sunset around there, which is pretty cool. But there you can see the Potum Brewery symbol, which I think is pretty cool actually. And yeah, California Love, a double dry hopped West Coast IPA. So 6.5% ABV. It says drink between 8 and 10 degrees, and I think the fridge was set at around 7 degrees, and it's been sitting out for a couple of minutes. So it should be alright. 440ml can this one, and I think I paid the Swedish standard of 45 Swedish kronor for this can. So that translates to roughly €4.50, about £4 sterling, and I guess somewhere in the region of like, you know, $5.50 American, something like that. So yeah, that gives those of you watching across the world a little bit of a price idea for this one. But yeah, double dry hopped West Coast IPA, 6.5% ABV. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. So I will say as well, I've had this beer maybe about 2 months or something like that, because I was struggling to find information on this brewery actually. So I think I wrote to them on Facebook, but they never responded either. But yeah, sometimes that happens. These smaller breweries, some of them can be very, very busy actually. But yeah, that'll happen every so often. But yeah, this one tells you that it's hot with Columbus, Centennial, and Simcoe, and it contains barley and wheat malt. So yeah, Columbus, Centennial, and Simcoe. Of course, we know these hops pretty well. All of them, I think, are about 12% alpha, so they're all American. Columbus is a big bittering hop, lots of kind of spicy notes out of that. Centennial's a lovely kind of lemony leaning hop, of course, and then Simcoe gives you a soft kind of smooth passion fruit actually. But in a West Coast IPA it will be a little bit more oily, I would say, compared to what you would get in a New England IPA. But yeah, there you go. So as you can see when we've poured this beer, it looks very, very nice. You can see that when we poured the beer, it poured with about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say perfectly white head. That has faded away to just be a very, very kind of thin foamy layer on the top there, and there's a nice kind of thicker ring just around the edge of the glass. But yeah, there's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass there, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head. I mean, overall, it does look very nice. In terms of colour, I would describe this one as being, you know, a kind of bright mangoey juice coloured yellow, this one. So remember, the West Coast IPAs, they can go in 2 different directions, I would say. So a West Coast IPA for me, it can be a big oily caramelly thing such as Sierra Nevada Torpedo, or it can be a lighter kind of bready biscuity beast such as, you know, Pliny the Elder from Russian River. Those, I think, are the 2 kind of ends of the West Coast IPA spectrum. But you know, quite a few of the West Coast IPAs you'll find out there will have a little bit of wheat, or some of them even have a little bit of oat in them, in the malt base as well. So remember that the colour of your beer is determined by 1, the type of malts that you use. That determines the magnitude of the colour. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role. The longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. And depending on the beer type, of course, adjuncts and barrel aging will also play a role. But those 2 mostly come into play when we're talking about sour beers, of course. But you can see this beer does have a little bit of a natural haze kind of thing to it. It almost has a little bit of a New England character in terms of appearance, to be honest, and that is most likely due to the presence of the wheat malt, and the beer will most likely be unfiltered as well. But in terms of a West Coast IPA, certainly not out with the realms of possibility in terms of its appearance, but it looks very, very nice. Incidentally, a West Coast IPA like this is probably going to undergo a wort boil of between 60 to 90 minutes, and yeah, the colour like this will tell you that it probably doesn't have too much in the way of like a kind of caramelly or brown sugary leaning malt. That's what this will tell you. But yeah, certainly looks quite nice, this one. We've discussed the appearance as much as we need to, so let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we go. Oh, that does smell quite nice actually. So I'm going to say straight away, the first you can smell like this one is going to be one of these more bready and biscuity West Coast IPAs. You get that straight away with this one. So yeah, you also get a nice big kind of citrusy hit out of this one, but when you've got Centennial and Columbus in there, that's not exactly a surprise if you know these hops. But yeah, let's try and break this aroma down for you a little bit more. So big first impressions are big and citrusy, and then you've got a nice kind of smooth bready backbone in this one. So yeah, the aroma of this, I think, is very, very nice. So yeah, let's break that down for you. So straight away you're going to notice that the backbone of this beer is a nice kind of smooth white bready sort of thing. You get that right away. There are one or two little hints of kind of bread crusty elements in there, and you also get a little bit of bitiness, I feel, from the wheat in this one. So that's quite interesting. So it's got a nice smooth kind of fresh white bready character to it. You get a bit of bread crust in there, but you also get just a little bit of bitiness from the wheat. And the more that your nose adjusts to this one, the more that you're going to get a little bit of a kind of biscuity sweetness out of this one. You can smell a little bit of a kind of biscuity note out of this one, which I think is great. So yeah, the thing is with the biscuity notes that you get in this, they're quite, you know, like McVitie's digestive kind of sort of things. They're really quite like that, actually. So yeah, the aroma of this beer is very, very nice in that sense. So yeah, it's got a lovely sort of how would we say, it definitely has a very, very nice kind of just McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. And of course these kind of aromas that you get will cover up a little bit of the booziness of the beer. But as I say, this one really leans towards that kind of Pliny the Elder end of the spectrum, where it's bready and it's biscuity rather than being a big oily caramelly sort of thing. So I think this is going to turn out to be pretty nice actually, but to be honest with you, I think that describes the malty side of the aroma pretty succinctly. Fresh white bread in there, there's a bit of a grainy bread crusty element to it, a bit of wheaty bitiness, and some nice biscuity, some nice sort of biscuity McVitie's digestive sort of things. So yeah, the aroma of this beer I think is quite nice. So yeah, malty side of things goes down quite well with this. But yeah, on the hoppy part of the beer, so for the green component, you definitely get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. I would say that that's most likely to come from the Columbus in this one. Columbus, of course, is the bittering hop. Remember that when it comes to West Coast IPAs, these guys rely a little bit more on early edition hops compared to the New England ones. So early edition hops during the wort boil are the ones that will give you your IBUs and your bitterness, and as you go through the wort boil you progressively have a trade-off from the bittering properties over to the flavour and aroma ones. So you know, these beers do have later edition hops as well, but yeah, New Englands don't use anywhere near as much early edition hopping as the West Coasters do, but you do get a nice little bit of bitterness out of this one. I'm curious to see how that translates into IBUs, because many modern West Coast IPAs, if we can call them that, they're nowhere near the same IBU as the old school ones was, and it annoys me a little bit because, you know, I do miss having some of these big bitter beers. But yeah, you definitely get a little bit of earthiness out of this one. You can smell a big spicy floral aromaticity in there, and that for me is going to come from Columbus all day long. Columbus is that big, you know, bittering hop in there. But you've also got a nice little bit of a grassy, zesty note out of this one, and that will be both from the Columbus and from the Centennial in my experience. Centennial's got that big lemony, zesty sort of thing. So yeah, the green component for me is really spicy and you know, big floral spicy kind of thing. But yeah, the fruity part of this beer then. So there's a lot of lemony citrus in this one, and that's the thing that jumps out at me about this beer. You do get quite a lot of lemony citrus, but in fairness, the more that you smell of this beer and the more that your nose adjusts to it, the more that you can pick up some of the juicier smooth qualities from the Simcoe. Now Simcoe is a very interesting hop because I find that a lot of hops behave differently depending on what malt base you put them in, but when you put Simcoe in a West Coast IPA where there's a little bit of a biscuity or a caramelly element to it, it comes across as a lot more oily, and you can certainly smell that slightly more oily, pungenty, passion fruit note from the Simcoe in this beer, as opposed to the softer, juicy side of it that you'll get in the New England IPA. Simcoe's a beautiful hop to use in black IPAs incidentally as well. It'll give you beautiful red fruity characters in those beers there. But yeah, I think the aroma of this one is very, very nice actually. It's quite, as I say, quite a citrusy and biscuity leaning West Coast IPA, this one, so it gets a big thumbs up from me in terms of its aroma. So yeah, I think that's everything that we really need to say about that side of the beer. So I think Potum have pulled off a kind of solid beer, this one, in terms of its aroma. But yeah, take a little bit of time to smell it, as I always say. That's always half the experience with the craft beers. But yeah, we'll have a little look at this one then. So let me just line that up again for you so that my OCD is happy. But yeah, I think it's about time that we try this beer then. So this one is the California Love, a 6.5% West Coast IPA from Potum Brewery in Nörrköpping here in Sweden. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, skål, cheers. Oh yeah. That's pretty nice actually. It does have a wee bit of a bitter bite to it as well. So yeah, I like how that one goes together. Nice little bit of bitterness to it. So yeah. It actually, you know, as I say, this beer, I think I've had this one about 2 months or something now, but it actually feels as if it's still in pretty good condition actually. So that's definitely good. It's been kept refrigerated for pretty much the whole time though, so yeah, that'll be why. But yeah, I like this. Let's try and just let the mouth adjust to it a little bit, and then we'll break it down for you a wee bit more. Yeah. So once you get over that kind of initial bite from this one, it really mellows out, you know, quite nicely, this beer. It's interesting, I mean, that's for sure. But yeah, you do start to get those nice, a lot of the things that was picking up in the aroma do start to come out of this one quite nicely. So yeah, as I say, first impression, this beer, it's got a good little bit of a kind of bitter bite to it. You get some of those nice biscuity elements in there in the middle of your palate, and you've also got those kind of citrusy, zesty, fruity characters. So yeah, kind of everything you would want from a West Coast IPA actually. So let's try and break this down for you a little bit more kind of succinctly then, I guess we could say. Actually comes across, it's quite sweet in the middle of the palate as well when you first take it in, but it dries up quite interestingly and leans more towards a kind of biscuity, you know, a bit of a biscuity kind of grainy sort of thing, which is really interesting too. So yeah, where do we start with this one then? So straight away with this beer, you can feel that in the middle of your palate there you get that nice kind of smooth bready sort of thing that goes right across the middle of your tongue. But what you'll notice is that the further you go into the aftertaste, it will you know, it will become a little bit more sort of it does get a little bit more kind of grainy, so you can feel, you start off with a bit of a smoother kind of white bread, but you will feel a little bit of a more kind of brown bready kind of thing coming out of this one. It almost comes across as a little bit sort of rye bready like in a sense, which is interesting. But yeah, definitely a little bit of a kind of bread crusty smattering right across the middle of your palate there. On top of that, you can feel this sort of smoother white bready layer from the white bread. From the wheat layer, sorry, brain's not working. So you get a little bit of that white bready character from the wheat, absolutely, and then on top of that you're starting to get the kind of biscuity elements out of the beer too, which is great. So yeah, I think the flavour profile of this beer does develop quite nicely. It's quite straight shooting in a lot of ways, but it really does work. So yeah, backbone of a nice, it's got the backbone of a nice kind of brown bready, it's got the backbone of a nice kind of brown bready kind of bread crust to it. On top of that, smoother bit of a kind of white bready quality from the wheat. Then on top of that, you've almost got like a kind of oval in the middle of your palate, and that's where the kind of biscuity, brown sugary elements come out of this one. So if you go into the dead centre of your palate, it does have quite a little bit of a, you know, a straight up kind of sweet caramel on there, but as you move out from that progressively, you'll start to get more of a, you will start to get a little bit more of a kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing. You'll feel that it gets sort of that grainier and grainier sweet brown sugary sort of thing the further out that you go. So yeah, I do like how that goes together, absolutely. Yeah, I think that this one Goes together really, really nicely. Yeah, that middle third of your palate is quite nice in this one. I think it sweetens up a little bit. The middle of the palate certainly sweetens up, but you do get a wee bit of graininess out of this beer underneath it the further you go into the aftertaste. But other than that, I don't think there's too much to say about the middle third of your palate then. But yeah, let's focus on the other parts of the beer. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you can feel a little bit of a bready build up there and a wee bit of a bread crusty kind of quality. So absolutely you get that. And then into the back third of your palate, you can feel the graininess, I think, does intensify a little bit. Then on top of that, you get the wheat, and the wheat kind of gives you a good little bit. The wheat gives you a good little bit of bitiness as well. So I really like how that side of things goes together in this beer as well. But yeah, that really works. But on top of that, of course, you get a little bit of the yeasty side of the beer. So on top of that back third of your palate, you can feel a little bit the more airy, yeasty elements out of this one. So yeah, I really like how that goes together. So yeah, you can feel, as I say, the yeasty notes of the beer are a little bit of a mix of white bread and kind of brown bread and things like that. But yeah, you do get a bit of that in the back third of your palate. So as you start from the very back of your tongue, you can feel that as you move further forward, you know, it kind of condenses down. It condenses down a little bit, so you can feel that the flavour just, it starts off tall and it condenses down a wee bit, and as you go into the middle third of your palate, it feels a little bit more sort of squashed together in a sense. So yeah, I do like, I do appreciate how that side of the beer goes about its business. But in the onto the hoppy side of things with the beer, and I think we've covered the malty and yeasty side of the beer as much as we need to. On the hoppy side of the beer, yeah, you get a nice little bit of earthiness out of this one, but then as you move further forward, it quite quickly develops, you know, a bigger sort of floral aromaticity. You can feel the Columbus really taking over that green component of the beer, and as I say, Columbus tends to be used as a bittering hop, and you can feel that in this one. I don't think this beer is madly bitter. I think it's got a wee bit more bitterness, but I'm not quite sure it's the kind of 80-90 IBUs that you'd normally get from some of the old school West Coast IPAs, but it still has a wee bit more to it, so you get a good little bit of that kind of spiciness out of the beer, should we say. So yeah, definitely a little bit of that there. Then round the front curve of the palate, you've got a little bit of a kind of lighter, grassy element coming out of the beer there too, and you do get a nice little bit of a citrusy, zesty element there also. So yeah, the front curve of your palate is a little bit more lighter and zesty, so Columbus will be giving you that, but the Centennial is also going to be playing a role there too. But I think that covers the green side of the beer in this one. Yeah, for me, mainly quite a spicy, floral aromatic kind of thing coming out of this beer. But yeah, let's focus on the that front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, as I always say, on the front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. But yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. On top of that, in there you start to get a little bit of a kind of bready build up and a few kind of grainy sort of things again. Then the base of that front third of your palate, you do have a bit more of a kind of smooth brown bready character in there as well, which I do like. But on top of that, you've got a little, you can get that nice oily bubble that I was talking about, and this is quite interesting for me, this one. So as you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you definitely get that pungenty, you do get a little bit of a pungent grapefruity sort of thing, and I think that's again the Columbus that's going to contribute to that. But as you move further forward from that, it mellows out and it gives you that more oily passion fruity note, and that's the Simcoe. That's the Simcoe all the way. Then as you move further forward, it sort of mellows out to be a little bit more kind of mango-like, and as you move into that front half of the front third of your tongue, you're getting more of a kind of lemony, citrusy note out of the beer. You do get that kind of Centennial type vibe out of it. So I really like how that goes together in this beer too. It is very, very nice in that sense. So yeah, a lot of good citrusy, zesty kind of character coming out of this beer. But yeah, this is interesting. As I say, you get it's pretty much the front half of that front third of your tongue is all about the kind of lemony, zesty sort of things, and behind that it's a more pungent passion fruit. So in a lot of ways, this is quite a straight shooting West Coast IPA. This one, I like how that goes together. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, it's an interesting one. This, as I say, you get a little bit more citrusy zestiness out of this, a bit of the spiciness and a bit of the kind of wheaty bitiness and graininess lingering in this beer the further you go into the aftertaste with it. But yeah, interesting beer, that's for sure. But thumbs up to Potum Brewery. They've done a nice job of this. I guess I'll need to try their New England IPA or one of their New England IPAs at some point and see how they go. But yeah, to round off this review then, we can look a little bit at the mouthfeel. So the mouthfeel for me, this one's quite a mid-bodied beer. Carbonation is quite smooth. The beer's got a little bit of wetness and slickness to it, which, yeah, you would want from this kind of style of beer. So yeah, absolutely, you get a little bit of that out of it. Yeah, that's what you would expect. In terms of bitterness, I think this one could be about 70 or 80 IBUs. I do get quite a little bit of bitterness in this one. It's not the most bitter West Coast IPA that I've come across right enough, but I still think it's got a solid little bit of that in there. The malt base, like we said, is a wee bit of graininess underneath, but a good little bit of smoothness and a wee bit of bite to it, and then you get a wee bit of sweetness to it as well the more that you drink of the beer. And then on the fruity side of things, I'd say it's got a good balance between the more pungent tropical fruit side of things and then the more kind of citrusy zesty side of the fruit as well, and I think all of that kind of pieces together quite nicely. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer I think works very, very well in this one. So yeah, it gives you everything you would want of a West Coast IPA, this one, and it leans, as I said, towards that more kind of bready, biscuity end of the spectrum. So yeah, I like how this beer goes about its business actually. So yeah, we can leave it at that for this review. So yeah, this one was the California Love 6.5% West Coast IPA from Potum Brewery in Nörrköpping. So yeah, look forward to trying one or two more of their beers over the next little while. I need to have a go at their New England IPA at some point, I think. But yeah, thank you again for watching my reviews. So until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Potum Brewery, if you're a regular drinker of their beers. And yeah, be interesting to hear from you guys. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Potum Brewery's social media, and I will catch you guys on the next review then. The California Love 6.5% West Coast IPA from Potum Brewery in Nörrköpping here in Sweden. Slanja, skål, cheers, and see you guys on the next review.